Rick and Morty's highly anticipated Season 3 finally premiered and fans have been going crazy on social media. I personally think that it has been great so far, but some people have criticized the new writers as not being as interesting and spending too much time focusing on an episode-long joke rather than just cramming an episode with tons of jokes and references like they are so famous for doing in the past. Let me know what you think of Season 3 thus far in the comments below. This is going to be the longest theory video I've ever uploaded on YouTube in my 3 years on the platform, so I hope you enjoy it. And I have some information for the future of the channel on the back end of this video. So here we go. 7 interesting Rick and Morty fan theories. There seems to be an on and off theme of Morty having more significant role than he's made aware of. The first point I noticed was in Season 1, Episode 10, where Rick told Morty to calm down because bad things happen when Mortys get overconfident. There is a clear parallel here with whichever Morty was piloting the robot Rick who set up Rick C-137. That same Morty told C-137 Morty that a Morty could never defeat a Rick, even when this was clearly his plan the whole time. So what would the evil Morty be afraid of? The same thing Rick C-137 was? The next thing I turn to is the Purge episode in Season 2. Rick initially thinks it's important for Morty to get rid of some rage and encourages the Purge. My theory is that Rick knew exactly where he was going when looking for fuel and set the situation up. As soon as Morty turns on him, Rick puts him down for most of the remainder of their time on the planet, as if to remind Morty not to cross him. But he also later blames the Purginol in Morty's candy bar, even though the candy bar is Purginol free. This puts any question of an ability for power seeking to bed with Morty. If an occasional purge is good, why wouldn't Rick just say so? What is it that Rick is so afraid of, and why? And what does the other Morty know that ours doesn't? I think Summer got pregnant by hemorrhage in that Mad Max world. Obviously there would be no protection in that sort of savage environment, at least when they first had sex. There's quite a bit of foreshadowing for it too. In this episode the neighbor says, "1 man entered and 1 man comes out in 9 months. Also, Beth became pregnant with Summer when she was 17, and teen pregnancy can become an intergenerational cycle. As for where they will go with it, I don't know. Given the emphasis on Beth and Jerry's divorce so far, it's possible Summer will see the unhappiness having a child so young can bring and choose to abort, which could be a dark subject matter for the series to address in the future. Further evidence also comes from Rick Potion number 9, where we see Summer watching a TV show called Pregnant Baby. Could this development have been foreshadowed that far back? I think Mr. Meeseeks is designed to be the antithesis of Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen by Alan Moore. If you're not familiar with Watchmen, Dr. Manhattan is very comparable with Mr. Meeseeks because they are both blue and there are features that are purposefully exaggerated. For Mr. Meeseeks, he is very lanky with a high-pitched voice and a comedically bulbous large head, which exaggerates his subhumanness. Point being, you wouldn't expect him to be physically superior to humans while fulfilling physical tasks, while Dr. Manhattan is realistically humanoid, hyper-masculine, and built like a Greek god. His voice in the movie is also chosen to be the typical low-pitched, dramatized god voice. Now, in Rick and Morty, Meeseeks are created to serve a single purpose. They are not always competent in fulfilling requests, and while they are unable to do so, their existence is in great pain. Though they are not drawn realistically human-like, their condition is excruciatingly similar to the human condition. Our incompetence to fulfill any prescribed meaning can cause us intense embarrassment, shame, or physical/mental exhaustion. The point made when we try to find a compromise in their prescribed task, example given 2 strokes versus all strokes, is also incredibly understandable and lifelike. In other words, the Meeseeks' existential angst is felt by a human who feels trapped in his limited physical capabilities and one who recognizes his or her inability to transcend the intuitive concept of meaning and purpose in the material world. On the other hand, Dr. Manhattan is a man made near omnipotent. His newfound and tremendous capabilities change his perspective on things. As he witnessed war and peace and the unchanging human nature, he questions our warlike inclinations and reaches a nihilistic point of view. He finds the human condition unresolvable and distances himself from humans, exempting himself from all moral consideration or liability. With his omnipotence and without the Meeseeks-like angst of mortality, Dr. Manhattan demonstrates a proclivity to alienation and passivity. In other words, Dr. Manhattan feels a kind of existential boredom due to his recognition of humanity's unresolvable condition, and thus he represents the attitude to distance himself from human affairs while facing the apparent meaninglessness of life. To conclude, I think Roiland and Harmon juxtaposes Meeseeks' character design with the classic Dr. Manhattan figure in order to represent the two predominant attitudes while facing the apparent pointlessness of human life. Meeseeks actively tries to reinterpret meaning and purpose as an effort to fill or overcome the principle of purpose, while Dr. Manhattan would be one that flees from the norms of humanity and alienates himself. Meeseeks is a brave Sisyphus who plays the game and keeps on pushing the boulder, hoping to yield different results, while Dr. Manhattan is a cowardly Sisyphus who tries to ignore the existential struggle. Doofus Rick is just as smart as other Ricks, and they only hate on him because he's happy. First, let's prove Doofus Rick is smart. Rick explains to Morty that his genius brainwaves are cancelled out by Morty brainwaves. Doofus Rick is from a universe where he doesn't have a family, thus the council assigned him a Morty. But if Doofus Rick is as dumb as they say, why does he need a Morty? The fact that he is given a Morty implies that he also has the characteristic genius brainwaves that our Rick talks about. As for why the other Ricks hate him, I'm pretty sure the others have already explained this before, but I'll sum it up briefly. Jerry is the opposite of Rick. He's dumb, but able to enjoy life and find meaning in the small and mundane things in life. Doofus Rick and Jerry seem to get along because they're not cynical assholes like Rick. The other Ricks just envy Doofus Rick's ability to be happy with his life. Sorry if this one was obvious, but I just came to the realization, so maybe I am not alone. In Season 3, Episode 2, Morty gets injected with the muscle memory of a deceased warrior. Following that injection, Morty's left arm, Armothy, becomes a killing machine, punching Rick, killing warriors, and eventually going on a final mission to kill the man who led to the destruction of Armothy's town and Armothy's eventual death. All the while, Morty sat idly by as Armothy killed every living creature around him. Or did he? The first thing we see after the injection is Morty's arm, and only his arm, change form. Rick even notes that Morty will be a ringer, so he's aware that the arm will give him specific reflexes to combat anyone inside the blood dome. However, what Rick does not expect is the arm to immediately punch him, as we see when he gets flown backwards from a sucker punch. So I think it's safe to assume that Rick was aware that Morty would gain the skills that the arm once had, but did not think that Morty would lose control of the arm altogether. Which brings me to my main point. I think that Morty was fully in control of Armothy, with the caveat that the arm sent him memories through muscle memory, merely influencing Morty's choices. When Armothy punched Rick, he had no reason to do so, but Morty did since he was pissed off at Rick for forcing him to play a part in his new plan. Quick backstory for context. In Season 2, Episode 9, Look Who's Purging Now, Morty goes on a murderous rampage. This has two implications. The first is that it shows that Morty has the capability to take a life as he begins to release his stress through the purge, relishing in everyone's death. The second is that it shows Rick wants to protect Morty from any emotional trauma when he lies to Morty about the candy containing Purginol. Now back to Season 3, Episode 2. Morty talks to Armothy as if it's not a part of his body, yet he is clearly using these fights as a way to take out stress about his parents' divorce, which is noticed when he says, "Who else wants to be the pussy of a dad today?" After killing another man, memories flash to Morty's mind of the soldier in the stands mocking Armothy's death, but Armothy doesn't immediately rush after the man against Morty's will. Morty is fully aware of the backstory and consents before Armothy kills the man. But it wasn't Armothy at all. Morty chose to kill that man based on the arm's memories, which it had sent to Morty's brain. He was fully in control when he threw the torch on the man. Morty uses the arm's memories to find the man that commanded the attack on the village. He has a talk with Armothy, once again, showing that he is making the actual choices at each step, and decides to kill the man knowing that this is the end of the adventure. Meanwhile, Rick sits in the background until Morty finishes the job. Morty's arm shrinks because he thinks that he has killed the man, but when he is still alive, Rick grabs Morty's arm and helps him finish the job. Rick knows that Morty needs to deal with this man to help get through his parents' divorce, but he continues to try to save Morty from any moral judgments by blaming the arm for not fully killing the man, and then helping Morty finish the job. In the end, it comes down to this. Muscle memory is the brain remembering movements, not telling the brain what to do. Just because I know how to play the drums doesn't mean my brain forces me to play them whenever I see them. Morty's brain was in control. It just acquired a new skill which helped Morty justify taking his rage out by killing everyone. Morty and Summer are not dealing with their parents' divorce in a healthy way, but Rick is trying to move past that fact as fast as he can, and in turn is allowing them to live in a delusional world. Armothy was merely a made-up character that Morty used, similar to a sock puppet, as an excuse to take out all his rage on the people around him. I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but I think when you see Rick's memories, the first dimension Rick C-137 comes from, Morty is not yet born. Rick leaves the C-137 dimension and finds another dimension. He spends 6 years there and watches a new Morty be born. Rick begins using it as a home from different dimensions. This Morty is the baby that Rick raises. This is the Morty Rick shocks as a test. And this is the Morty he abandoned and turned into evil Morty. Or Rick transferred his brain into this Morty, like when he destroyed the council and became evil Morty. It has now been 20 years from a new dimension. A Morty who grew up to be a Rick was launched by the council to find a missing Rick. He stumbles upon the dimension and finds a portal gun and visits the first dimension it had been to, which happens to be C-137. This new Rick met the now 14-year-old Morty and knew how it felt not to have a Rick, so he took the place of C-137 Rick. Meanwhile, evil Morty is now trapped in the dimension for a while, giving him plenty of time to develop a hatred for Ricks. He creates a robot Rick to get revenge. This is also how he has a spot-on impression of Rick's voice, and by being trapped, his IQ begins to grow, which is why he made a portal gun and got a few hundred Mortys to cloak himself. He went on to hack the now fake C-137's portal gun and killed Ricks from other dimensions so he could take revenge further and make the fake have to go to the council, hoping that he would get stripped of the gun. When they go to find evil Morty, they find the fake Rick, and then the story of the episode plays out until they kill evil Rick. After this, evil Morty takes off the eye patch. He destroys C-137's hacked portal gun and switches their minds to take over the fake C-137's place with his portal gun, which is also why the council does not attempt to confront them again in that episode. In the Season 3 premiere, Rick made a point of mentioning that he used to wear blue pants. We see him wearing blue pants when we see his memory of the death of his wife and the child. Opposite Rick, on most adventures, is Morty, dressed in a gold shirt and blue pants, and the brown hair of his comedically stupid father, Jerry Smith. These days, however, Rick wears a blue shirt, but brown pants. Rick C-137 has been touted as being the Rickest Rick, paired with the evidence of C-137 Morty being declared the one true Morty. Their clothes and their colors symbolize more. Blue in this case symbolizes the idea of perfection that Rick tirelessly pursues, but ultimately can never achieve. Rick's blue hair indicates his mind is still perfect. A Rick is the smartest biological organism in every universe, and C-137 is the one true Rick, so obviously his mind is perfect. Rick's blue shirt indicates his passion, the passion that drives him on his research. His pants changing from blue to brown after he witnesses the death of his wife and child means he is no longer able to make lasting relationships, which I think is pretty clear from everything Rick does. C-137 Morty has brown hair like Rick's brown pants, meaning that Morty's brain is less than perfect. We hear about the nitty-gritty details of Morty's stupidity in Close Encounters of the Rick Kind, specifically that his stupid waves shield Rick's genius waves. Remember that. His shirt is gold, which isn't quite blue. But gold is a good color to have a heart of. Basically, Morty's gold shirt means to show that he has a good heart, but that he is still innocent and naive. When we see his good heart in Bring a Fart in Morty Night Run, and how highly he values his family. We see his naivete and innocence also in these acts, when it is revealed that Fart is going to kill everyone in the universe. He was in the Galactic Federation prison, and about to be assassinated by Grumbopulous Michael. Finally, we see how Rick has begun to wear off of Morty when we watch Morty kill Fart with Grumbopulous' gun given to him by Rick. His pants being blue indicate his relationship is perfect, which is evident in this devotion to Rick in their countless misadventures and his pep talk to Summer in Interdimensional Cable 1. Given that C-137 Rick and Morty are both deemed to be the Rickest and the Mortiest, and between them they have completely blue wardrobe, it is clear that they cannot be this way without each other. It's a term used before in the show, codependence. Without C-137 Morty, C-137 Rick is just another Rick, and vice versa. We have also seen other Ricks who seem to be a little more unhinged than C-137 Ricks, namely the Ricks seen in the memory and evil Rick from Close Encounters of the Rick Kind. This is why I think at some point this season, Morty is going to be killed by a Rick. I don't know, maybe the season finale. Right now, Rick is flying high after his victory over Jerry in the form of Beth divorcing him. As the season progresses past episode 3, I predict Morty, with the help of Summer, will start turning the tides against Rick, sowing seeds of doubt in their mother, and revealing weaknesses in Rick's emotional armor in the finale. We will see the return of evil Rick, being controlled by the cryptic evil Morty seen at the end of Close Encounters of the Rick Kind. In the fight between Ricks and Mortys, C-137 will defeat evil robot Rick, but C-137 Morty will be mortally wounded by evil Morty, and evil Morty flees. The family mourns Morty while Rick pursues evil Morty. We know that if he can capture evil Morty, he can use his body to regenerate C-137 Morty. At this point, it would be artistic license and preferential conjuncture on the writer's parts. Regardless, Rick will be faced with the truth about himself that he might not be ready for. He needs his grandson to make his life worth living. With the added symbolism and Morty being killed by an version of Rick, I'm sure the season finale will be on par with the emotional, devastating, autoerotic assimilation. That was all the theories I had time to share today. If you liked this video, please give it a like, and if not, give it a dislike. Sorry it took me so long to get a video out, but I had been really busy with doctor's appointments for both myself and my family, and I just haven't had the time to really sit down and work away at these videos. It has been negatively affecting my live streams as well, and I want to apologize for that. Now this is going to be sort of a placeholder because I know video isn't out yet, but once it is, the link will be up here and in the description. My good friend Brendan over at Quick Attack Gaming has finished his project Blue Exorcist Abridged, and he has spent a better part of 2 months working on this project. So if you would go over to the video and give him some love, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you all so much, and I'll catch you in the next episode.